So as it turns out, we're not just getting one Zelda game for Wii U next year, but two of them. Which means, for those of you who accidentally clicked on this video thinking it was an analysis of the new Zelda Wii U, hi! You'll find a link to the one you wanted in the description below. But for the rest of you, yep, Nintendo finally confirmed that Twilight Princess HD is in fact a real thing, and is sporting some upgraded graphics and a few new features as compared to the GameCube and Wii originals. Now, even though Twilight Princess HD isn't technically a new game, that doesn't mean there aren't some interesting details to point out based on the small amount of footage we've seen so far. So come on, analysis machine, give us everything you've got. Okay, so right off the bat, the trailer shows us Link, who's holding the Master Sword in his left hand, which confirms that the game is primarily based on the GameCube version of Twilight Princess and not the Wii one. And as you might recall, the Wii one had to mirror the entire world in order to accommodate a right-handed Link. So basically, the sun rose in the west and set in the east. Yeah, it was a little bit weird. So if you're coming to this game from the Wii version, the world might seem somewhat new to you, which is kinda cool, as well as being the version of the world that the developers had originally envisioned. So with it being based on the GameCube version, it seems that Wii Remote support probably fell by the wayside. And sure enough, during the brief gameplay section, we can see the familiar button layout of the gamepad instead of the Wii Remote. And here's another change. You have 3 equipable item slots assigned to X, Y, and R, which is one more than the GameCube one, but one less than the Wii's 4. Although, in actuality, 3 of the ones in the Wii version were more like quick access shortcuts instead of true equipable slots, which makes the 3 true item slots here an improvement, allowing for faster, instant access to your inventory. But what about those B and A buttons? They don't seem to have anything assigned to them after all. Well, since the Wii controls seem to have been dropped, that means you're going to need a button to swing your sword, which is almost certainly assigned to B, like almost every other Zelda game ever. As for the A button, well, we can see it being used by Link here to make a point of gallop, confirming it as the interact button. Again, like pretty much every 3D Zelda game ever. But typically, those buttons would have a sword icon or be labeled in the case of the interact button. But we're guessing they're blank for now just because the game's still in development. Now moving to the other side of the screen, we can see a couple more details about the controls. Like how you'll be able to talk to your partner in crime, Midna, by tapping the L button instead of Z on GameCube or up on the control pad for the Wii. And speaking of pressing up, we can see that doing that in the HD version will serve as some kind of toggle for the map, but more on that in a bit. Now, one of the big complaints about the original game, and especially the Wii version, was how intrusive the HUD was. Look at that mess! The map takes up like a quarter of the screen, and the buttons in the Wii version are laid out like an actual Wii remote, taking up the right edge of the screen. But thankfully, we can see immediately that this has been greatly improved for the HD version. For one, check out that map! It's now been consolidated to fit inside a small box. Next, everything else, including the button icons, have been shrunk and pushed closer to the edge of the screen. Finally, the D-pad shortcuts used to have text labels in the GameCube version, but now we can see it uses an icon instead. But for as much improved as the interface is, we wouldn't be surprised if you could still turn off the button icons, much like how you could in the Wind Waker HD. Okay, so that covers it for everything about the interface that we can see. But what about what we can't see? Because, as you might have noticed, the controls and HUD layout closely matches up with that of the other HD Zelda remake, being the Wind Waker HD. And we don't think that's a coincidence, as we'd be very surprised if the game doesn't borrow other aspects from that game too. We don't think motion controls are gone entirely, because every single 3D Zelda remake so far has included them, including the Wind Waker HD. So we're pretty confident you'll be able to use the gamepad to look around and aim weapons like the bow and arrow while in first person this time too. Oh, and if the developers wanted to, they could even replicate the sound effects emitted from the Wii remote through the gamepad speakers. Although we have a feeling those would play them from the TV like in the GameCube one. Then we had the gamepad's touchscreen, which in the Wind Waker HD offered instant access to your map and inventory, allowing you to view your exact location or hot swap items in real time without pausing the game. And we'd be very surprised if either or both of those features don't return here as well, especially given the fact that sorting your inventory while on the move will give you something else to do while riding horseback across a vast world. A world so vast, by the way, that the small little map in the corner probably doesn't quite do it justice, which is why it makes perfect sense to also have it displayed on the gamepad too, again like in the Wind Waker HD. Although, there is one odd thing about the map though, because if the map's displayed on the gamepad, why is it listed as a D-pad shortcut here? After all, the Wind Waker HD didn't have one, so we have a few ideas as to why that might be. For one, it could just be a toggle for the on-screen map, like Twilight Princess had originally, although it wasn't labeled on-screen in the original games. Or it might function like how the labeled map function did in the GameCube version, bringing up a full-screen map instead. But assuming that is the case, that would run counter to the idea of having the map on the gamepad, because what would be the point of having it on both the gamepad and the TV? So maybe having the map on the gamepad won't actually carry over after all. And it would match up with the fact that the Wind Waker HD didn't display a map on the TV at all. Unless, of course, you're playing with a Pro Controller. So, it's possible the footage we've seen so far was actually recorded using the Pro Controller instead and not the gamepad. But regardless of what controller was used here, we fully expect the Pro Controller and gamepad to be supported in the final game, like it was in Wind Waker HD. Finally, we fully expect the right control stick to offer full camera control, just like in the Wind Waker HD, which is actually a feature that was also in Twilight Princess, but only in the GameCube one. Now before we move on, the trailer also gave us a brief look at some Wolf Link gameplay, which mostly reveals how his controls will work too, as represented by the new fancy button icons. And so far it seems to match up exactly with the GameCube version, with the Ascent ability clearly being assigned to X, B for attack, and Y for what looks to be dig. Now oddly, there's no icon for the A button yet, but we're pretty sure it'll be dash. Okay, and that covers it for all the gameplay details we could dig up so far. I mean, besides pointing out that pretty much everything else we've seen appears to be identical to the original game. With one other exception, because seeing as this is an HD version of the game, you might expect it to look a little bit better too, and surely enough, it does. Now at first, it might not look like much effort went into updating the visuals, such as how the character models and environments still seem to have the same amount of polygons. However, the game on the whole looks a lot sharper than before, and it's not simply because the game's being rendered in HD now. Instead, as it turns out, the textures appear to be getting a massive overhaul across the board. And this isn't just because of some automated HD conversion software, because the developers clearly either went back to the original higher quality assets, or are remaking them entirely from many of the textures. Take Link here for example, as you can now actually make out the chainmail underneath his tunic. Then there's his shield. In the original game, it looked pretty dingy, whereas in the HD version, it looks to be pristine. Oh, and check out this chest strap. You can now see the holes for the buckle to attach to. And Midna got a similar upgrade. Like, check out the stone texture of her headpiece. It looks a lot more stone-like now. And check out the chip mark there, which wasn't in the original version at all. And you can even see that she does in fact have a belly button too. And the same thing goes for Zant, well, minus the belly button thing. But his armor has been infused with actual detail now that makes it look more like an actual suit. And of course we have Zelda. And when you first meet her, you can now actually see the texture of the fabric that makes up her hood. And another scene shows an even bigger difference, where the fabric on her dress is immediately apparent. And of course her hair braids are far more detailed now too. So yeah, the texture work of the characters has been greatly enhanced across the board. But these improvements extend to the environment too. Check out this shot of Link hacking away at some shrubbery. You can clearly make out every individual leaf in the HD version now. And by the way, the few leaves that you could make out in the original version aren't even in the same position as the new ones, which again confirms that at least some of the textures are being redesigned entirely. In another example, check out the brick wall behind Midna here. It used to be a blurry, featureless mess, whereas the bricks are now not only crystal clear, but almost appear to have actual depth to them. And that goes for the room that you meet Zelda in too. Look, you can even see a design that looks like numbers here. But perhaps the biggest change in this room is the window decoration. Before, it used to be a mostly featureless black design, whereas we can now see intricate iron work. Now beyond the textures, we did notice that the amount of bloom lighting pouring in from the window in this scene does appear to be toned down a bit, so perhaps the developers are readjusting the amount of it throughout the game. Oh, and by the way, the differences even extend outside too. Check out the field here, we can see individual blades of grass in the HD one. Yeah, that's a pretty big improvement. Okay, we could keep going like this all day, pointing out every single texture upgrade, but we're pretty sure you get the idea by now. Now, interestingly, all the footage we've seen thus far is all from relatively early in the game. Even the actual gameplay sequences appear to have been recorded just after the second temple, being the Goron Mines, based on the small amount of hearts here and Link's inventory. So we can't help but wonder, could there be even more bigger changes in store later on? And of course, Nintendo did hint that there will be even more gameplay features to be announced later on, including how exactly the amiibo will work in the game. Alright, and with that, we're done covering everything we could dig up on Twilight Princess HD. But as usual, let us know if we missed anything by posting in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain for more Twilight Princess HD and other things gaming too.